sweetheart.
Yeah, homework.
I gave her the mic. She's not helpless. She's a strong, independent woman, and she don't need no man.
Okay.
We're coming from that, Patti.
My husband has been amazed over the years that speaking of the law, that I've never gotten a ticket. Well, can't say I've never. It's probably back in about 70-something. I got a speeding ticket.
Oh.
But it's not because I don't speed.
Tell us more.
But it's
Go
just
on.
that I just kind of, I stay within a certain range. And I figure, if you're going down the highway, on major highway, and if you see a police car and you're speeding, it's too late anyway, so why slow down?
Yeah. Yes. Preach.
Anyway, that's my story. Anyways, I'm speaking from Matthew 5:17 through 20. And do you think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets? I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. But truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will ever by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay. I'll walk a little thing here. Now, in the law, there are 3 distinctions, and they are the ceremonial, the civil, and the moral laws. And in the ceremonial laws, that back then that was just teaching specific rules of making an offering to God. And in Leviticus, the first 3 chapters, it gives you examples of what that instruction would be, to present and prepare an offering. And God provided specific directions for the worship so it was pleasing to Him. And that's what our worship should be. And these instructions teach us about the nature of God and can help us develop the right attitude toward worship. But the primary purpose is to point forward to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
These laws, therefore, are no longer necessary after Jesus died and was resurrected, which, awesome. Well, we are no longer bound to these civil, ceremonial laws. There's still the intent behind them, the purpose behind them, the principles to love and worship the Holy God are still very much true. The other part is the civil law, which in Deuteronomy 24 talks about if you lend to your neighbor, don't go to his house and collect the collateral from him. Say you go, but you don't go in. It's a showing of respect. In those times, it might be their cloak, which they're giving you as collateral. And in that case, it calls for you to not only, you will take the cloak, okay, but you let them bring it out and present it to you, but when this evening comes, sunset comes, they'll need their cloak to cover for the evening. You bring it back and return it to them. It's all a showing of respect, and it's just it makes it less hard to do, hard to ask for help, hard to feel like you're in need. Sometimes that's a hard thing to be. But these commands, these civil commands are, again, things have changed in our culture. We don't do the things like we used to do. It's totally different. But again, these are guidelines. These are things principles that we can take to the bank, so to speak. And Jesus demonstrated these principles by example. His words were perfect, and his walk was perfect. And I quoted Jamie, Jesus says, no's for no's and yeses for yeses, or vice versa. And that's awesome. And then of course, then you get the moral law. And that is like the Ten Commandments. And those are still very valid today. Exodus 20:13 is thou shalt not murder. And there's no reading between the lines there to make it any different than it is. You should not murder. So these laws are still very much in effect. They're still very important. And it's better, to demonstrate these laws than it is try to explain them. And example I want to give you is when I was probably about 19, I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and it was my first apartment. I was so excited, so full of myself, and I had a girlfriend who lived across the hall from me. And we were good friends and stuff, and one day she comes to me and she said, I'm going to move to Denver. And I'm like, I don't want you to move to Denver. I'll miss you, and I want you to move to Denver. But she moved, and a few weeks later or so, I got a phone call from, it would have been the sister of her boyfriend. And she says to me, Terry had her babies. And I'm like, what? I didn't know she was pregnant. I had come across to her, that she didn't think she could confide in me. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you, I was 19 years old now. Come on, it's been a while. Still stuck with me. And that hurt. It wasn't that many years ago, I did finally write her, because we still kept in contact. And I asked her forgiveness for that, because it had always weighed on my heart that I had let her down, and she needed somebody to let her down. And anyways, she was very gracious. She said she didn't even remember. And whether she did or not, it was just, I needed to say to her, I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you. How many times when we let God down, He is gracious and says, it's okay. I'll show you grace. Back then I was, like I said, I was so full of myself. And, I grew up in church, when I was out there, I was on my own, and I knew what was what and what to do, and just, I feel like I just spoke it out, and without really taking into consideration that people have feelings, and maybe there's more going on there, and here she had that going on, and because of that, she couldn't talk to me. And I felt so bad. But we're good friends. We write is what we do, because she still lives in Missouri, and she's a very talented, wonderful woman. She's had a lot of knocks in her life. But I always know her cards and letters when they come, because she's very artistic. This is the latest one, but at Christmas, she always decorates her envelope. She's very artistic. She chainsaw cards and everything. Anyways. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She's excellent. And so again, that's an example of grace being shown to me, and how I want to show people grace. The grace that God has extended to me through forgiveness in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I thank you, Lord, for this time.